that's my food for today. It's wild rice, brown lentils, beets, mixed greens, apple, and carrot and tomatoes with a balsamic and olive oil dressing, and that's James's. He has a little more stuff on his plate than I have on mine. Some, what do you call it? Sauerkraut and celery and onions, as well as, oh, and he has a tahini dressing instead, and mung beans that I sprouted.
So yeah, I've got a bit more, but then I've got a bigger frame. That's probably significantly bigger.
Well, I didn't have much of the celery, and I don't eat the onions, so
Yeah. Get a bit of the reaction.
Yeah. I haven't been able to eat them for a while. But anyway, James is going to talk about some books. I don't know what.
Yeah. So, well, this one I've been threatening to review for quite a while. It's done by a guy called Krupa.
Polynesian Languages.
Yeah. Polynesian Languages. Victor Krupa. It's not Gene Krupa. It was Gene Krupa, the big fancy drummer way back from the days of swing and stuff like that. Buddy Rich. I think I saw Buddy Rich. It's one of the more moments in my life I'm more ashamed of. It was 1965, I believe. Calgary Stampede. And yeah, I don't know what, they should have had some country and westerns. But they had some sort of, it was the grandstand show, middle of the day. And yeah, it was the summertime, so we weren't sticking out of school. We had a bunch of kids that were the rock and roll act or so that they, I can't remember. Was it Herman's? It kind of. Anyway, Buddy Rich came on. I think it was Buddy, and not Gene Cooper. And he had his band there and stuff like that, and he was showing off his drumming skills, and we were lustily booing us kids, you know, the 10 to 13-year-olds or stuff like that. And it was shameful because Buddy Rich he's an awesome drummer. Bit of a show off, but hey, you know, like, might as well show off what you can do. So Victor Krupa did this, and I think it's roughly there when I was watching, put out roughly there when I was watching Gene or Buddy Rich. Let's just see when this was published. Ordinarily I put it on the, 1973, so 8 years later. It is just a kind of like a very, it's not even a survey, it doesn't actually go through the various languages, so it gives it's not a survey that way. It's more like a grammatical sketch. You'll see grammatical sketches in a variety of different places. One of the most valuable ones that I've got is I've got, there's I think it's a Smithsonian Institute put out maybe a dozen volume series or maybe an 18 volume series of Indigenous culture. And hopefully they're still reissuing it and things like that. Very good. I've only got one volume, but it's of the languages, Indigenous languages in North America. And it has maybe a dozen language sketches, you know, individual languages and things like that. Maybe, and they seem to be quite valuable. You're not going to learn from the sketches how to speak those languages, much less write them, how to understand them and hearing, or even to read them. But you do get a sense of what these languages were like, a bit of a sense. So what the sections in this book are chapters. Historical survey of research, so it's intended for academics. And then, so it's looking at various people who've done various sorts of things. way, and of course, at the beginning it probably wouldn't have been. I think this New England we characterize as explorers. So Wilhelm von Humboldt, the learned kind of fellow, but he did some work on exploring that. He explored a lot of places. And like it's better to say explore than discover, because the stuff is already discovered by the indigenous people. Not necessarily fun enough, but it knows what have been discovered by the Polynesians, just not stuff. So then it works into external and internal relationships of Polynesian languages, and in some ways the external relationships are more interesting than the internal languages, because I don't know if there's really that much difference between many of the languages. When I took historical linguistics at university, we focused on the languages of the South Pacific, not just the Polynesian languages. We look at the Polynesian languages and the Austronesian languages. Oh, Micronesian languages, sorry. Just and then we were looking at the relationships to, I don't know if we looked that much at the relationships to the languages in Australia, but some of the languages to be found
You lost some lettuce.
in Indonesia, and thank you. And then Indonesia, Malaya, because they don't Malaysia anymore. And I don't think they really covered too many of the languages on the mainland. Then it works its way to phonology. Phonology, as I call it sometimes. I kind of like it. I think a lot of people find it dry as dust, but that's the way it goes. Because I don't find it dry as dust. Then they move to morphology and syntax, the study of form. And syntax is more the way things are arranged and we characterize as sentences. Then lexicography and semantics is the 6th chapter, so what that's dealing with is meaning. So lexicography would be something like a dictionary. Of course, a lot of these languages didn't have dictionaries. So dictionaries would have been kind of like what people said. And then bibliographies, and there's substantial bibliographies, not just a bibliography. And it does give bibliographies in a kind of a survey kind of way. So Tongic languages, Samoic and outlier languages, East Polynesian languages, to the Easter Islands, Hawaiian, so on and so forth. Maori. That's the funny thing, the Polynesian tended to fan out, so the Maori, as I was telling Pauline, my recollection was that they're Polynesian, not Melanesian, Marquesian. So,
yeah, the Polynesian people were amazing.
They were very nice. I think they were the ones who made it to Madagascar and not the Melanesians. The Micronesians, so that's in the Indian Ocean. As I've said before, like people who want to celebrate Chinese ingenuity and enterprise and stuff like that, when the Ming Dynasty from around 1400 to maybe 1435 sent out a variety of different commercial missions heading west. And I think more than one person has said to me, and I think it's just a general idea there, that if the Chinese hadn't pulled the plug, and that's the emperor, hadn't pulled the plug on these ventures, my heavens, they would have imperialized and colonized the world, and they would have developed capitalism and all this kind of stuff. Garbage. If we're going to celebrate people of color doing things like that. Let's celebrate what the Polynesians did with much less, formal technology. A lot of this is brain power, moving stuff. I don't think they had a writing system. The Chinese had a writing system, and they had one for thousands of years, about 1400 AD. It would be, I'd say, minimum of 3,000 years. The Polynesian, I think they had a writing system, so it was, they'd educate people on how to navigate by the stars, and they would be educated on looking at cloud patterns to be able to distinguish land over the horizon, and look at patterns of wave patterns to tell if land is over the horizon and things like that. Very, very impressive technology. And you notice they didn't colonize the known world, really. I suspect they're the ones who brought, I don't like indigenous culture in North America, South America, being explained by black people coming from Africa, or white people coming from Europe early, or Egyptians bringing pyramids over to Central America and stuff like that. But I would be shocked, actually, not just surprised, if the Polynesians hadn't made it to the west coast of Greenland and BC, possibly the west coast of South America. So,
Yeah, because you were saying that I guess some people think that the Easter Island statues are supposed to be African people.
My heavens. Yeah,
that they
just
made
abstract
African sculptures
kind
there.
of stuff. Yeah, they're doing
But-
big things, monumental things. It's hard to do.
Yet they didn't have them back where they came from.
Yeah.
And somehow they decided to just stick them up there.
Monumental sort of
It doesn't make any sense. And it makes more sense that they're like the totem poles, right? Of
I think.
British Columbia.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, well, the people they had big rocks to play with in Easter Island, so that's what they did there, and then they
Well, apparently they had trees to play with, but they played
ran
with
out
the
of
big
those.
rocks. Yeah, they ran out.
Yeah.
So we could blame them for like hunting and stuff, but there might have been some disease.
Who knows what happened?
They're not the only place where that's happened, apparently, like Scotland.
But they didn't run out of the trees in British Columbia.
No. They just would have had a bit of a trading influence there. I don't think they interbred very much. But it was the idea, they're not interbred. I think it was basically an indigenous culture that was influenced slightly by outside traders, basically. There to conquer. So that's what to celebrate. You shouldn't really have to be celebrating anything like that. Oh, we've got to find some people of color who did stuff better than the Europeans. Like, get over it. It's just something that happened. And there's just a sense of desperation about that sort of stuff, and it ends up with people lying. I've got this horrible book called The Black Discovery of America. Heavens, it's awful. So, the guy wrote it, and he's basically saying the blacks had to discover the Americas before the whites. Just get over it, and the thing to do is to do discoveries of one sort or another in the future. Don't be dwelling on the past, and what it ends up with, people are honest, is maybe encouraging an inferiority complex with people who are dishonest, like the first person writing that book. I'll be reviewing it I'm working my way through it. It's real drag. It's not much bigger than this book, but it's a drag seeing all this person just lying and lying and lying. What it has developed within is like a superiority complex of the Europeans. That is black. So yeah, don't go around lying like that. It doesn't help. It doesn't help out people. One of the best things to do.
I mean, there were some awesome civilized societies in Africa, Egypt.
Yeah, exactly right.
Focus on that
To
one.
call it black is
No,
kind of ridiculous. But there, around 7 BC, there were people who were very black, coming from present-day Sudan, that ruled over BC. They gave a little bit of trouble to the
ruled over
biggest, where? Over, did I say BC? Over Egypt. And they, thanks.
Yeah.
The greatest conquerors possibly in the world to that point in time, the Assyrians, who had a considerable degree of difficulty with these so-called Ethiopians. It's better to call them Cush. The Bible mentions them, and I think they call them Cush. I think the Assyrians called them Cush, and I think the Egyptians called them Cush. Maybe the Cushite maybe is the best term. So this actually comes recommended. Don't spend money on it if it's. But if you do manage to get it at second hand, it's good if you're interested in languages generally and specifically about languages of the South Pacific. And like maybe get it out of the library. It's only just a little over 100 pages, and there's a lot of information in here, and there's a lot of, in the bibliographies, there's a lot of stuff that you can follow up. I put a lot of, I don't put check marks, but I put little arrows, half arrows. Yazik Maori, Moskva, Nauka. So Nauka is like science. So that's Yazik means language in Russian. So that's one that I follow up. Pismenos Ostrova Paschi is what it would be. The writing of Easter Island. So it looks as though they did have a writing system. So when I said the Polynesians didn't have a writing system, I
Interesting.
stand corrected. So again, that's Pismenos is writing, and Ostrova is Easter. Island, I should say. Paschi. I guess is what they call Easter Island. That is Russian for east. Vladivostok. Vostok is east. Well, it's Easter. What am I thinking of? So that's Pasqua is kind of like for Easter. So that's I'm thinking Easter month. Yeah, just woke up.
There he is. He's really chatty.
The bird, yeah. He's hopefully saying encouraging things to me and discouraging. He's not happy.
I think he wants our food.
Oh, that would be it. Yeah. So now here's a couple of books I'm going to review. So I gotta be kind of apologetic for this. What's time we got? 15, 10. Right. So I like sports. My mom was the one who raised me to be that way. Not my dad. My dad didn't have much use for sports. He'd call Jacques Laperriere, like making fun of him. And I can't remember all the names. I didn't tease him too much in return, and I still don't. He's almost 99 years old, a couple of days if he survives COVID that long. No thanks to Scott Moe, or whatever his name is. Scott Free Moe, as I call him. So here's one. A hockey and historical masterpiece. The amazing Canada-Soviet hockey series of 1972, Cold War. And here's Phil Esposito. And who is this idiot there? Who is that? Maltsev? I can't remember who was having to cover Esposito. An unenviable task, trying to move Esposito was kind of like trying to move, kind of like trying to move a mountain. He'd get set up in front of the net, and the Soviets had a big trouble with him. He was the leading scorer of all the Yuri Blinov. So I don't know if his name means something like pancake. I think Bellini is maybe something like a pancake. Anyway, I'm afraid he ended up being a little bit of a pancake. He's looking kind of innocent. The Russians were pretty bad. So I've dealt with a lot of. Yeah, I probably won't get around to this one. Maybe I will. Going, gone! And so this is about home runs. It was put out about 2000 when there was a big, 2000, when there's a huge amount of drunkenness about what turned out to be steroid-assisted home runs. And so you can see, what was his name, Mark McGuire or something like that? McGuire, I think is the name. Cardinals here. He started off with the Oakland A's, I think. Holding out any kind of showboating there. Look at my steroid-assisted muscles. Here's Hank Aaron. This might be the home run that he hit where he broke Babe Ruth's record, or it might be any number of his many home runs that he hit. This is Carlton Fisk willing a home run to go around the foul pole. Famous home run. I don't think it extended the World Series, but I don't think they won the World Series. The Red Sox had to wait until the 21st century to break the Babe Ruth curse. There's Babe Ruth, the famous left-hander whose record was broken by Henry Aaron. I don't think Henry Aaron was nearly the overall player that Babe Ruth was. There's apparently a Japanese player who's as maybe a better pitcher than Babe Ruth was. And yes, Babe Ruth started out as a pitcher, but he was so valuable as a hitter. And he didn't just hit home runs, he hit for average too. And I think at one point in time, despite this portly build here, he had some speed on him. So this is probably maybe a slightly later photo, although it looks very early. But so there's a Japanese player who's maybe the best pitcher in the majors and the best home run hitter as well. So that's the thing. Like Henry Aaron played in small ballparks, from what I can tell. Now, of course, Babe Ruth was hitting home runs into a very short right field at Yankee Stadium and stuff like that. So there were people. Willie Mays was a contemporary of Henry Aaron, and I picked Willie Mays any old day over Henry Aaron. Henry Aaron would go along and hit his 30, 40 home runs. Willie Mays was hitting up into 50 home runs. Henry might have made it that far, but he was consistent. But I don't know. He's about as impressive as Roger Maris to me, maybe. They're saying, like he hit so many home runs with his wrists. Well, you don't really hit powerful home runs with your wrists, okay? So Roger Maris hit a lot of line drives into the short right field in Yankee Stadium. He was he hit line drives. Well, those aren't the kind of things. Yeah, much more impressive player than Roger Maris, and frankly, than Henry Aaron, although he didn't take care of his body. This is back when he still was kind of taking care of his body. He admits, he drank too much and didn't stay in shape, but he played football, and he was fast, unlike many white guys. So here he is with Hank Aaron back in the day in '57. They were both MVPs of their respective leagues. Now there's Mickey Mantle really powering something. He's a powerful player, and he was a switch hitter. His dad forced him to be a switch hitter, and he didn't like it, but he's the most powerful switch hitter ever, at least in terms of home runs. So he could hit home runs from both sides of the plate. And when you're hitting home runs in Yankee Stadium from the right-hand side of the plate, you're powerful. He'd hit stuff out of stadiums. He was that powerful when he started out. Now he's like Bobby Orr, and he busted up his knee, I think, in his first year. Here's the difference between him and Bobby Orr. Check this out. He was playing on busted up knees. Bobby Orr's knees would get crucified during a season, and he was lousy generally in the postseason. He won 2 Stanley Cups. And he's playing with the second best offensive player in the world, Phil Esposito. And he was only able to get two Stanley Cups. Mickey Mantle, I think he had at least 8 World Series victories. He was in many World Series. But here it is. Check this out. Babe Ruth in the World Series, 15 home runs. Mickey Mantle, on his lousy knee, 18 home runs. That's number 1. And Yogi, this Duke Snider, who did, I think it was the Toronto Blue Jays and Montreal Expos color commentary. He's an awesome player. There's old Duke Snider, but there are very few non-New York Yankees there. Even Reggie Jackson started off with the Oakland A's, and he ended up with the New York Yankees. Lou Gehrig, of course, is a classic Yankees guy. Yogi Berra, he must have been a lot smarter than he appeared as a coach. He was a, you look at how many home runs dude hit in the World Series, important ones. Yogi Berra, catcher. And yeah, I think Yogi Berra was named after him. Joe DiMaggio, another Yankee. Frank Robinson, another impressive player. Cincinnati Reds, and I think Baltimore Orioles. I think Bill Skowron was a Yankee. I think Hank Bauer was a Yankee. Goose Goslin, I think he was a Yankee. I'm not sure about him. Gil McDougall. I think all but 2 guys in the top 10 list were New York Yankees. So Mickey Mantle, you know, like he was with a lot of players. I think he started off with Joe DiMaggio, close to Joe DiMaggio's last year, and Mickey Mantle's first. So he was with Yogi Berra and stuff like that. And but he produced when the crunch was on. Now he wasn't playing a contact sport where Bobby Orr was, so there is a difference there. You know, so he'd take out, his knee would take less of a beating. So yeah, this is kind of ridiculous because, of course, there's a whole chapter on the big competition between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire to break Roger Maris's record, which broke by 1. And it, because it was during a longer season, broke by 1 Babe Ruth, so there was an asterisk by his name. So, you know, like, but you can see this guy's just juiced on the steroids. And it turns out Sammy Sosa was juiced on steroids too. They've got one picture here of the future of baseball. It's right at the end. They've got Bobby Bonds to the right and Barry Bonds to the left. And Barry Bonds is, of course, the guy